Car fix back. Car fix back.
Car fix back.
Car fix back.
Car fix back.
Car fix back.
Car fix back.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of First Canada Live. It is snowy here in Toronto. It's snowy pretty much everywhere right now. Well, not everywhere, but like the center of North America is pretty snowy, and it's going to be a good show. So get bundled up, watch, take a look and enjoy. We got a lot of fun stuff going on, so let's not waste any time. But let me introduce my co-host on today's show, a student on First Team 1305, Ice Cube from North Bay, and a member of the First Canada Youth Council. Say hello to Michelle D. What up, Michelle?
Yeah, what's up? We're having a great day today. Today was a snow day for me, so really is snow.
All right, and in the
all
background, we have a friend who's back. Can you introduce us to your friend in the back?
Yeah, a returning guest, Mr. Handsome, and
Okay.
me and him, we got the same shirt on today. Look at us, the
Eh.
FLL tournament shirt.
Oh, the FLL
Mhm.
North Bay tournament shirt. But that tournament's coming up in 2 weeks, I believe, right?
Yeah, coming up
February
soon.
27th. You can tune into that right here on this Twitch channel. It'll be on Saturday. Is it the 9 a.m.? Is it the first, second, or third? I forget. We got 3 FLL tournaments. You have to watch them all. Come on. You know where the action is. But speaking of action, we got some really fun stuff going on today, Michelle. We have amazing guests, including the STEM girl, Jennifer Ladipo, published author of some children's books to get girls excited about STEM, is going to be here today, as well as we have the creators of developers of the FRC Everybot from Team 118, the Robonauts, a bunch of folks from NASA here with that awesome robots that has done so well at the Ontario districts over the years. So it's going to be really fun. Throughout the show, you got questions for any of us, post them in chat and we'll try and get them live on the air. And hey, we got a giveaway today. We got prizes. So stay tuned to chat. Stay tuned for instructions because you might win something kind of awesome. Also, whenever you're making comments in chat, remember, we're here to have some fun, celebrate excellence in the community. So, let's be positive. Let's be good. Okay, so it's time for our weekly wellness moment. And Michelle, you're going to walk us through something that's going to help us relax, help us feel better about everything, right?
Yeah. So today I'd like to just take a moment to remind everyone to take a moment for yourself sometime and have some quiet time. I know life can be really busy. You have your screens, you're checking your likes, you're checking your emails, everything can be coming at you all at once. So sometimes you just need to take a moment for yourself, some quiet time. And one of the things I like to do for this quiet time is origami, and particularly folding paper cranes. So I have about quite a few paper cranes here all on a string.
Wow.
So
a lot of cranes.
Yeah. And they say if you fold 1,000 paper cranes, your wish will come true. So I only got about 23 there, so it's a little ways away.
977 more and your wish will come true, Michelle.
I know, I'm working at it. So
You'll be there
it's
soon.
a good work towards your wish and take some quiet time for yourself. It's a win-win situation.
I gotta pick a good wish if I'm gonna make 1,000 cranes. I wouldn't want to use it on something like I wish I wouldn't stub my toe in the morning. I gotta something good. I don't know what it would be. Is it one of those wishes if you tell people the wish, like it gets negated? Is it one of those?
Well, I don't know, maybe. I haven't heard of anyone's wish, so I guess
Well, I don't want to ask you what your
the
wish.
ones you don't tell.
No, I don't want to risk it. You've already made 23 paper cranes. I wouldn't want to mess with that. All right, Michelle, let's go into the news for this week because we got a lot of interesting stuff happening. One of the most interesting last past weekend was FTC scrimmage number 3. They've been going through judging for a whole week. They actually started the previous Saturday, and now they are they're all done. They've competed. They've sent in their match scores, and we have the results here. So let's find out who the winners are by taking a look at the award slides, which will be coming up in a second. There was a lot of good stuff going on. So some teams were competing for the first time while other teams had competed already. So this was the next time. And they're all getting ready for the qualifier event. The official qualifying events are starting on March 13th. March 13th sounds right. Hey, here we are. Look at the Game Changer slide. So let's take a look at our winners from FTC Challenge. First Tech Challenge scrimmage number 3. The Design Award in second place goes to team number 16399, Team Quantum. And first place, 18960, Edit Robotics. For the Motivate Award, second place, team 18846, Braybotics. And first place, 18920, Robotic Storm. Control Award, second place, team 16417, Dr. X Academy. And first place is team 16397, Relatively Quantum. For the Innovate Award, second place is team 16413, Edit Robotics. And first place is team 16417, Dr. X Academy. The Connect Award, second place goes to team 16397, Relatively Quantum. And first place, 18844, the Proteins. And for the Think Award, the second place is 18433, Makeshift Robotics. And first place is 16413, Edit Robotics. And now the Performance Awards. This is for the highest robot scores during their matches. Third place is team 18433, Makeshift Robotics. Second place is 18844, Proteins. And first place on the field is team 16417, Dr. X Academy. And the Inspire Award, the highest honor in all of FTC, second place. Third place, team 18920, Robotic Storm. Second place, 18960, Edit Robotics. And the FTC Scrimmage number 3, first place Inspire Award goes to team 18433, Makeshift Robotics. Congratulations to all the teams who competed. Thanks to our amazing volunteers, especially our judges and our judge assistants, helping make everything go smoothly. And we'll be back for another FTC event. Qualifier number 1 on March 13th will be the showcase and interviews leading up all the way along. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We got other good stuff going on too, Michelle. So you are on a team, I'm assuming, is submitting Woody Flowers and Dean's List this year. Am I correct?
Yep.
Well, you're probably pretty busy because the deadline is this Thursday.
Mhm.
I know things are coming up here. Hey, just a reminder, you can do a Dean's List submission and a Woody Flowers submission in just a couple days. I know you can pull it off. So if you haven't started yet, mentors or students, get on this, because there's nothing cooler for a student than to be nominated for Dean's List, and there's nothing cooler for a mentor than to be nominated for Woody Flowers. So if you can, let's make it happen. Chairman's Award is due the following Thursday, February 25th. And then the Thursday after that is the deadline to submit your game design challenge and innovation challenge submissions, as well as opting in to the skills challenges. So there's a lot of stuff happening over the next 2.5 weeks. So make sure you're paying attention to these deadlines and you are getting stuff going. Hey, going back to FTC for 1 second, we talked about the Control Award and how Relatively Quantum won the Control Award. We've got a great video of their Control Award submission. So let's take a look at that now. All right, thank you, team Relatively Quantum, for supplying us with that control award video. And for all the teams out there, FTC teams, remember, a lot of you were submitting videos where it's, just like footage of your robot, just playing in a match or doing stuff. But if you submit something a little bit more detailed there where you show all the details of the controls, that's really great for the judges to see everything that's going on. So I think this is a great example of all the cool control options that exist in FTC. It's like, it's like a little FRC robot shrunk, it's all good stuff. There's lots of good stuff happening there. Back to the deadlines, like we said, this Thursday for Dean Liston Woody Flowers, the 25th for Chairman's, the 4th of March for Game Design and Innovation Challenge, and then the Skill Challenge is April 8th. If you want to opt in, go to FRC at home, like AT, not like the at sign, frcathome.org and sign up now. But if you want to do any of these awards, you're going to have to get your students on team rosters to submit. And to do that, if you have any questions, you can send a message to First Canada senior mentor, Paul Keenan, better known as Swaggy P. He also might have some chip clips for you, possibly. I don't know. I heard they're coming back. Yeah, right, Michelle? They're coming back. Limited edition. He's going to autograph them with a silver pen. It's going to be really, really nice. It'll be good stuff here. We talked a little bit about this, but next Saturday, like as in this Saturday, like coming up in just like 4 days, is the first FLL Challenge qualifying event. It's the Kingston event. We'll be doing the showcase on Saturday at 9 a.m., where you can see matches from every single team along with some presentations and of course the awards. So it's going to be like a live virtual event, sort of, it's, normally like at this time of year, we'd all be going in person to events and whatever. This is the best we can do, but it's going to be really, really awesome. If you check out our practice event, it's on YouTube. You can take a look at it. But if you love FLL action, come take a look at this. Have you been doing much FLL this year, Michelle?
Well, not too much, but I'm going to be helping out with the FLL North Bay this
Right, because you got the shirt.
Yeah, there's one coming up. Yes, because I have the shirt.
Exactly. So yeah, it's exciting having all these events coming up. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Also coming up on March 20th and 21st is the STEMathon. That's right, First Canada Girls and Allies STEMathon, where high school students sign up and they work in teams, either teams that they've come up with before or they work with new people to solve a real world problem in 24 hours, where they get paired with industry mentors who are all First Canada alum and many are First Canada volunteers. And so you get to like work with like the coolest, volunteers and mentors out there. People like Karen Lee, Celeste Nantel, Lisa Ramraj, myself. Like that's not even that cool or whatever, but and solve a real world problem in 24 hours. Plus, there's all sorts of other fun stuff. Now, you did this last year, right, Michelle?
Yes, I did. Oh my goodness, it was so fun. I'm telling everyone who's watching, you should sign up and join in. It was so much fun last year.
What was your favorite part of the STEMathon last year?
Well, the staying up late to try to finish your project, that's just with like these new people I was put in a group with, mostly people I didn't know. So meeting these new people, making new friends, and then staying up late with them. And in the late hours of the night, things kind of go a little, and that, you don't get that that experience that often. So that was really my favorite part. And then waking up early to finish it up, it's like, it's exhilarating. It was so much fun.
What was your project? What did your team come up with?
So the theme was education of the future, and our team came up with a website platform to help students read and teachers keep track of the reading. And there was also a lot of, we really focused on having it be very accessible. So there was like I think a dyslexic font, it would read it out to you. It would show you what line you're on, all that stuff. And there was a leaderboard as well to help motivate you to read. So there's a lot of stuff. It was a little while ago, but it was pretty cool.
It was pretty cool. I saw your presentation and you won like a big screen monitor for that, right?
I did. And I still use it to this day. So there's some legendary prizes.
Yeah, we don't know what the prizes are yet for this year, but we're hoping that there's going to be the same sort of level. Last year, there was laptops given out, monitors, streaming sticks, all sorts of good stuff. So you want to do this. Also, if you're missing robot competitions, because like that's going to be on like a Saturday, Sunday, when we normally would have been at like the Waterloo Regional or at another event for all that excitement. If you're missing that sort of stuff, the STEMathon is the closest thing you're going to get to that sort of competition, like the excitement, the exhaustion of making a pick list, at 1 a.m. you could be making like a presentation for this. So it's going to be all good. So good stuff coming up at the STEMathon. One last reminder for all teams watching here, you want to see your team on First Canada Live? Teams doing some cool stuff? Well, you have the opportunity. The FRC team showcases we're going to be doing them on First Canada Live. So if you want to talk about your game design challenge entry or your innovation challenge entry, or maybe show off what you're doing for the skills challenges, fill up the forum that's being dropped into chat right now, and you can come on First Canada Live for a 15-minute segment to talk about what your team's doing. Like, what better way to show off the game you've designed than to come on the show right here? You know, it'll be a lot of fun. So I say you do it, and you can come on the show. We'll ask questions. Maybe there'll be some prizes. Who knows? Maybe you could get like a swaggy shirt. Who knows? There's stuff out there. So tune in for that. Okay, that's the news for this week. We've gone through a lot of stuff, and we will be back in just a moment with Jennifer Ladipo. But before that, let's take a look at a word from our sponsor.
So FIRST robotics competition is the epitome of the robotics competitions here in Canada. It's an opportunity for high school students to get involved in the engineering design of an entire robotics system.
People think robotics is all about building the robot, right? But building the robot is only half the challenge. Building the robot is actually a vehicle for you to build your own self.
For our Canadian manufacturers to stay competitive, there's a lot of automation and robotics that have to go into our manufacturing facilities. So the skills that the kids are learning in this competition hit that mark spot on.
There's definitely the technical ones. You know, I've learned how to do CAD design. I've learned how to work machines. But one of the really, really big ones that I really like is and I think it's really important in this world, is I've learned how to work with a team. Without being able to work as a team going into industry, it's not going to work out.
There are absolutely skills that the students are using today that are things that we use in professional careers that have to do with STEM. They are learning how to communicate, they're learning how to collaborate, they're learning how to think outside the box so that they're not limiting themselves to one thing. They're getting to do coding, marketing, design, engineering, science, the whole 9 yards all together.
It really teaches you all these different skills that you wouldn't think that you would know. It teaches you, how to work with other people, how to do soft skills, communication, teamwork, leadership, all that kind of stuff.
Some of our alumni have gone on to receive excellent scholarships at top-tier universities, and because of that, they've started getting known well by top-tier companies, which allows our brand to carry on as they work for large technological companies in the programming sector, in the automation sector. It's really interesting to see where we end up.
All right, we're back, and it's time to introduce our first guest of the day. She is an industrial engineering student studying at Dalhousie University with a passion for leading more young women into the creative world of STEM. She is Jennifer Ladipo. Her combined love for mathematics and writing caused her to create the STEMGIRL, an initiative at encouraging young girls to view themselves in both a feminine and scientific light through storytelling. With 2 published books and more on the way, she continues to find new ways to describe what fun STEM can be. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, Karthik. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you for being here. I'm really, really excited for the story because, like, your story, like, your stories are cool, but your story is cool as well. And it's exciting to have you on here to tell us what's going on. And also, every time we chat, it's such a good conversation. So I'm glad we can share this with all our audience. So to start things off, you talked about your passions within STEM and how you're interested in mathematics and writing, and you focus on the creative side of things. But often when people think about STEM, it's viewed through this very tight lens where it's very rigid and formulaic. They think of doing calculations, and when people get exposed to STEM at a young age, it's like times tables or memorizing farm animals. That was like my first STEM. It's very weird. We pay a lot of attention to farm animals in kindergarten. I'm not exactly sure why, but that's a question for someone else. But there's so much creativity needed to solve tough problems. Like, as you advance through math, you go into engineering. Like, I did pure mathematics. It's all creativity. There's nothing formulaic about it. So why do you think creative problem solving is so important?
I think it's important because it applies to everything. There's no situation that you can end up in where you can't somehow solve the problem in a creative way. And it's always nice to be open-minded, not have your mind in a particular box. So for example, when we have this pandemic where there's so many things going on and it's difficult for people to meet and it's not necessarily safe, this is a great time to find creative ways of people to still interact, still talk to their friends, but at the same time stay safe. So problem solving, creativity is important because you won't always have a logical problem. It won't always be something you've seen before. And then all of a sudden you have to think outside the box and there's no past history to help you. And then all of a sudden we all have to come together and literally be creative with our ideas.
It's really poignant that you mentioned that right now, Jennifer, especially in light of the pandemic, because like this is new. It's a virus that had not been seen, and we hadn't seen a pandemic of this scale in over 100 years. So before any of us were doing anything, the world's obviously a different place. And so, we're trying to have solutions to really tough problems. Like, for example, how do we vaccinate a population of 39 million people as fast as possible? And to just think that we can do it the same way we've done flu shots and the such is like, okay, that is an approach. But if we want to go faster, we have to come up with creative ideas. I saw one recently, Canada's Wonderland, which is like the big theme park here. They're going to be, and their parking lots are already set up with like gates where people drive through the gates to buy your ticket or whatever. They're going to be doing a massive drive-through COVID vaccination center there. It's just like it's one of those things that was not in a playbook for vaccination. No one's ever gotten a flu shot at Canada's Wonderland or something like that. But like that's a form of creative problem solving for a big problem, So I think that often in STEM, because of the way we're taught, right, Jennifer and Michelle, it's like memorize this, memorize that. Like you're in school right now, Michelle. Like how much of your like classes is like memorization?
Well, there's a lot. Sometimes the teacher shows you, okay, this is how you do this kind of question. This is how you do this kind of question if there are these variables. But then every now and again, sometimes this question appears on a test. There's some practice, and the teacher's like, you got to figure that out yourself. So, and when you figure out those problems and you have to come up with a way to solve them yourself, that sometimes is the best feeling when you finally get it.
Definitely.
So, yeah. So I'm glad there's at least a little bit of that creativity creeping in, but there's still, if you get the question like this, answer it like this. If you get the question like that, answer it like that.
And shout out to all the amazing teachers out there who are finding ways to bring that creativity into the classroom, because we think, so because we talked about this, it seems so rigid or whatever, but there's so many teachers who are doing creative things. I remember when I was in high school, we had this one teacher, and so we'd just been doing like normal like geometry stuff, whatever, and then we came in for a test. And I looked at the test and there was no English on here. The entire test was written in Arabic. It had numbers, but it was written in Arabic. And we were all just like, what? He's like, well, you're all smart, figure it out. And we had to use contextual clues to what we'd been learning, looking at the diagrams to anticipate what the teacher would be asking and to come up with this. And like, I stared at it for like 10 minutes. I didn't know what to do. It's like, okay, like I can do this or whatever, and that's not like that's problem solving, when the Egyptians were building the pyramid, there wasn't a rope. It's really, I don't know, it's cool. It's interesting. Michelle, do you have a question for Jennifer?
Yeah. So I know, it's easy to focus on the positive stories in STEM and stuff like that, because, who doesn't like to hear a feel-good story? But there's really no journey without a little bit of failure. So how has that affected your journey?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a really good question, Michelle. I failed like super hard, like hardcore. And I'm okay with saying it now because the time has passed. But in my first year of engineering, I was in chemical before I went into industrial, or the second year. I remember my first calculus test, I got a 3 out of 20. It was 15%. And I called my mom. I was like, Mom, it's all over. I'm like, I can't make it. I can't do any math. I thought I was good at math. And this happened a couple times where I didn't, and I dropped the course. And there were a couple of courses where it wasn't even that I did the course, I just failed the exam. And it takes you a second to realize you probably should study a bit more. and that's what I find interesting about failure. It's only a failure when you stop. That's like the only time that anything is really a failure. And that's something that I find it's interesting you asked that, Michelle. I'm actually working on a guide to failing like a champion right now in university, because I think it's something that everybody should know. Failure isn't like we do it as a numeric thing. Anything over below 50%, you failed. And really, in real life, it has nothing to do with a percentage. You could fail 90% of the time, 99% of the time, and the one time it works and everything works out, at the end, everyone's like, oh, you're such an all-star. But it literally failed 99 times, right? So I guess you have to ask yourself, is the failure the fact that it didn't work, or the fact that you stopped? So I think changing the definition of failure, that's what this journey taught me. I failed, and I failed hard, but it just taught me that you could just keep doing it, and that's how you succeed.
I love that, redefining success, redefining failure. But like, if you think about what goes on a first robotics competition team, where you fail over and over again. Everyone, like, we got some of the best robot builders on the world who are coming on for the next segment, and I'm sure they can talk about the amount of times that their robot, you build the robot, you put it together, and the first time you go to run it, it's just like, oh, it doesn't move, or like the arm glitches for a bit, and then, or like something smokes, and it just goes over and over again. But that's normal. Solve hard problems. You don't. If they were a hard problem, you wouldn't be able to solve them the first time. Like, that's just not the definition of a hard problem. And it goes back to creative problem solving. You won't become a creative problem solver unless you fail, because your first approach is going to be like kind of straightforward, go at it. But failure encourages you and shows you that, hey, you got to try different things. You got to do different things. We need to like embrace failure and not, I thought it was so cool. You came out here, Jennifer, and like you're coming on the show as like a role model, and you're like, yeah, I failed hard. Like, people need to hear that, because like otherwise people think that no one fails, or they think that the only people who fail are the ones who aren't getting their engineering
And
degrees.
actually, it's interesting you say that. When I had my co-op, my internship, I remember I had failed for the next semester. And I was so nervous, and I was telling my boss about it. I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I failed this one course. And he like brings me close. He's like, I'll let you in on a secret. No, so did I. And I start talking to all these engineers I work with at General Motors, which is like a pretty intense company. And all of them have had this experience where they either failed a test or something just didn't go well. But the thing is, when engineers get their ring, you forget so quickly about all the failures you had. But just remembering that. But I think another big part of, I would say, dealing with failure, because it's easy to say just keep going, but when it's happening and you failed and you're in your emotions, it's very, very easy to give up. And in that moment when it's happening, I would say really try and focus on the positive things, because positive things, or the meaningful things. Because I once had I was a mentor. This is how I got to know Lego robotics. When I first did my second year in university, I was a mentor for I think it was the little kids. It was the first, so they were a little younger, and they had practiced and practiced and practiced this thing. And it was really interesting because it was about 5 boys and 1 girl. And I was always trying to push the girl. I'm like, guys, you gotta let her do everything. You gotta let her do. So she practiced and she practiced. And eventually, like, they worked as a great team. At first they didn't, but eventually they were all working together. And at the end of it, they let her run the competition, which I thought was pretty bold, because it really was the boys that had programmed it, but she was used to using it. And when she did it, she messed it up like she had never messed up in practice. Like, because it happens, right? You practice and you practice, everything goes right. And then when you do it, and at the end of it, she didn't do well. All the boys were like, that's okay, Tanya, you did so good. Like, we were so proud of you. And to me, it doesn't matter if we didn't win the competition. It doesn't matter if she didn't do well while she was practicing. Their success is the fact that they were able to work together with this person that at first they weren't even including. And at the end, they gave her props and they were encouraging her. And to me, I was just like, oh, they succeeded, because that's a lesson that goes on for forever, as opposed to just winning a competition.
Right. And I think also, like, you said like they succeeded because they learned that lesson. It's also about setting our own goals properly. And you always want to set your goals such that they're attainable, but like you have to reach to get them. You don't want them to be too easy where it's just like, okay, you got it. You don't need to do anything creative, whatever. Or you don't want to set them too far where you're setting yourself up for failure, where you want to, put it out there where you can reach it. But like, my goals aren't going to be the same as Michelle's goals, and aren't going to be the same as Jennifer's goals. And the 3 of us could be sitting together in class, but we could all have different things where my goal might be a certain mark, or, my goal, your goal might be, I want to really master this one unit because this is something that I wasn't, or Michelle's goal might be, I want to I'm interested in something here, but like it's all different, but you have to set goals. And one thing I think is really important in this is when you set a goal, write it down so it doesn't move. Because I know I personally, I'd love to hear from the two of you. I'm guilty of having moving goalposts where I set a goal and then once I've achieved it, I'm like, oh, that wasn't good enough. I need to do this much more.
Mhm.
And I think that's a little bit of a trap. Have you felt that before, Jennifer?
I definitely have, and I think it's actually that's why I think creativity, science, engineering, philosophy are all intertwined, because it's a bit of a philosophical question, interesting life thought, because you have to ask yourself, when is the goal done? Is it when it's the best? Is it when it's what you think is the best? Because that's also relative. And I found something that has really helped me is cataloging my milestones, no matter how small they are. So I think we're always looking for big wins. Like you want to get this big goal done and you want to get this whole thing done. But I'll even show you right now.
Yes.
I have this, I have this to-do list book, and you can see, I'll do like a little flip book of it. And it's just every single day, I almost do it twice a day. Every day I just write a to-do list. And every day I tick off what's done. And every day I give myself a percentage. So I give myself a 15, I give myself a 20. And the only time that I am not a complete success is when I have 0. So even if, and I write down, I think also people always want to do their big goals, but you might not realize for you to do your big goal, you have to clean your room. So I write down on my to-do list, clean your room, because it's part of your big goal. If you one of those people who needs a good environment to work, you clean your room, which maybe takes you an hour, and then you get to work and you're like, oh, well, I feel like I didn't do anything. But if cleaning your room was part of your process, now you've done one thing on your to-do list. So I would say cataloging every little thing that's positive, because your goal is important. But as everyone knows, it's really the journey to get there, right? So that is what makes it fun. So I would say, for failures, just understanding that every little thing you do counts. You only have to do one thing a day, because if you just do one thing on your to-do list and be proud of yourself and relax, even if it was just cleaning your room, be like, I nailed it, and you did it.
Yeah, and you know, it's all about, like, you know, what you can do and what it's going to mean something to you. And like this happens in FIRST Robotics all the time. You know, when you're doing FIRST Lego League, you don't need to do every single mission. You know, you can just say, okay, we're going to do these missions. We're talking with the Everybot folks later on, and they talk about how to build a simple robot that accomplishes a certain subset of the game, but really masters it, as opposed to, you know, I say this all the time. I'd rather, you know, be the, you know, forget about the jack of all trades is often the master of none. Pick a couple things and just master it. Go one at a time, just as we're going off the list. And, you know, if that one thing is going to clean the room, like, make this room spectacular, like up to what you need it to be. So that's all really, really interesting. You know, one thing we wanted to talk about, Jennifer, because you share a lot of interesting experiences always, but you were clearly a Black woman in STEM, and you understand that race impacts everything that we do for everyone in different ways. Can you tell us about some of the challenges you've faced as a Black woman in STEM, but also possibly any things where you've had opportunities?
Sure. It's really interesting, because I would say most of the challenges I've faced have definitely been mental, as opposed to the way you would think they were. It's not as blatant as you think. It's not like you go to work and somebody goes, hey, you're a Black lady, get out of here. That never happens, you know what I mean? And I'm really happy that I live in a society that's actually quite welcoming of people of different cultures and backgrounds. But I will say it's a very, very interesting mental struggle at first, especially when it first starts, because you're trying to convince yourself that you belong in a place where you don't see anybody that looks like you. And it's a tricky thing, because we're very we as human beings, we're very related to the things we see. It doesn't necessarily mean it's what is meaningful or not. It just, whatever we see is what we attach ourselves to usually. So when you enter a room and you're the only one that looks like you, it takes a fair amount of mental strength to be comfortable. And I would say this would happen to any race, but as a Black lady in STEM, in engineering, now I had once had to take a sociology paper, so I'm very aware of the history of engineering. Engineering was made for essentially wealthy white men. That's what it was made for. That's who it was actually made for. They were rich. They were the ones that had the technology. And then eventually what happened was the Industrial Revolution occurred, and all these wealthy people they wanted to make all these machines, but they didn't know how farming worked. So then they had to include the farmers now. So it wasn't just wealthy people, it was wealthy people and the farmers. And then each step, you'll see how diversity, it was innovation that caused it. Each step, they essentially needed the expertise of these other people that weren't wealthy white guys. So they just kept adding more and more people until engineering now you can see. So you can see that it started off a certain way. But one thing that I will always mention is that I am so grateful for every race that I've met that has encouraged me. And I will never, ever forget it, because there's no race from the time I have been in high school, middle school, all my teachers were always so encouraging in every single step of the way. And those are the things that I remember. It's not that I haven't had experiences where I thought to myself, I don't feel like I belong here. It was that there were people in the room that made me feel like I belong. And that's the tricky thing about race and feeling like an imposter. It's a two-way street. If you're not being included, then you're not being included. But if at every step of the way someone, and that's something I'll always thank my friends at General Motors and Pepsi for, my 2 co-op jobs, is there was never a time I felt like I couldn't do a job. Even if I was in a room with 10 people, then none of them were women, none of them were my same race. There was never any exclusion. They'd always be like, Jen, come here, we need your opinion. I'm like, you my opinion? And there's nothing like, and I know it's unfortunate where we live in a world where there's a certain view of certain people that should do a certain job, but that's just the reality of what it is. In my class, majority of us are white guys, or mostly guys in general, and that's just the reality. So you get into this environment, and these people are so smart, and they have such phenomenal expertise because they've been working for years, and they're brilliant, right? And you're sitting there and you're like, there's no way I can be smart enough to be in this room. And then that person who you think is brilliant says, Jen, like, why don't you come take a look at this and give me your opinion? And you're like, my opinion? And it's a phenomenal feeling. So for me, I always want to remind everyone, not just role models, both people who are feeling that feeling of race, and both people who are experiencing and not feeling it. The best thing you can do for each other is include each other in everything. Don't leave each other out, because that mental fight, you don't see it and you don't hear it. So when I'm in the room and I'm thinking to myself, do I belong? Am I smart enough to say this opinion? You don't hear it. All that everybody sees is this person that's not contributing to the team. And then it's a cycle, because you're not saying anything because you're scared that you won't sound smart. They're thinking to themselves, why is this person not saying anything? And then it's a cycle. But very soon you realize nobody knows everything. People ask questions all the time. And as a Black woman, as an engineer, I realized my biggest superpower was being able to say, I don't know. Sometimes you don't know, and I'll get back to you. And I know all these things don't sound like they have to do with race, but they helped me in my mental fights to just remind myself that it's okay to not know. It's okay to not always be perfect. You got the job, so you belong here. And once you're more used to that mindset and you start remembering all the positive things you've had, all the positive encounters with different races, it really, really makes a difference. Even as an industrial engineer, we're required to take a psychology course. And in psychology, when you're working with different people, with different cultures, they say the only way that you can ever get past is to interact with them. You simply have to interact with everybody so you understand their mental models, their mental maps, find languages that are common, bring them together, and head toward the same goal, as opposed to focusing on the things that you literally can't change.
Yeah, there was so much there.
Sorry.
No, that's good. That's good. That's good. But I love the idea, that you said that you've always, you've had teachers and coworkers who've like advocated and uplifted you. And I think for all of us out there, everyone's in a different position. Sometimes people have been, the outsider in a group, and other times people have been the insider. I think it's really important to remember, for those who are the insiders in whatever group, and it could be because you're a guy or whatever it may be, is to understand that the people who may feel like outsiders feel really alone and not there right now. And just the littlest things, by trying to include them, make a difference. Because you're saying it right now, like it's all those micro incidents like turned into something, and now you're like able to be like confident and have everything going on like that. So it's, I don't know, it's very cool to see that and to hear those kind of like uplifting stories and whatever. I think we've all, anyone who's successful is lucky to have had great mentors and great supporters and people opening doors and people guiding them along a path, you know? So it's,
And I find if we're honest with each other, we'll see that race has nothing to do with it. You can meet people from all walks of life, all races, all genders, and they literally just they come through in ways you would never imagine. One of my engineering fairy godmother, I literally call her that, my boss from General Motors, my very first boss ever. Till today, I would say I would literally have never gotten to a place where I had books that were like physically in my hand without her. And it had nothing to do with race, and it never will. And I think that's the part that people struggle with, is because it's easy for me to say, focus on the positive experiences, but there's societies where majority of your experiences with certain races are negative. And that is a reality for some people. All they ever see is the negative side of one race. And I think that's where I say it takes everybody. If it's either one of us or none of us, it's either all of us or none of us. It's up to us to forget about all the history. And it's a hard thing to do, and it's painful, especially if you're always encountering racism and prejudice. But essentially, our greatest strength is to forgive and to treat people in a way that they're able to remember that we're all the same. So regardless of your color, whether you're white or whether you're black or whatever it is that has occurred to you, your job is to remind people that they are the same as you. So if you're a white person meeting a black person, it's your job to remind a black person that their race doesn't matter. If you're a black person meeting a white person, it's your job to remember that you need to forgive whatever hurt there is that there might be between any races, and remember that the differences don't matter. So between every race, I think it's all up to us, because there's resentment on either side, to forgive, move past it, and really focus on the things that are the same. And this is one thing, I'll add one more thing, and this is kind of quirky. One of my favorite things about Canada is the cold. Now, everybody says they hate winter, they hate the snow and all that, but I live in Alberta, where it hits up to about -40. Now, when it's about -10, -12, you can still separate things by culture and race. You can say a certain race can deal with the cold a bit more than another race. But when it's -41, -45, you can't separate anything anymore. And I love it, because you're at the bus stop wearing everybody's in Canada Goose, just like, and you're looking at each other. And in that moment, there's absolutely no race, because -41 doesn't care about your color, your hair, what you're wearing. You're just freezing. And the whole time, you can't see race. You're just looking at another human like, why are we here? And they're like, at least we're doing it together. You know? So yeah, that's one of my favorite things about Canada. It almost removes race for you.
The weather does interesting things. That is for sure. Michelle, you got another question?
Yeah, my internet went out for a second, so I'm not sure what we've covered already.
We were just talking about the same question we were on before, so you can jump right back in.
Sorry,
Michelle.
it was long.
No, don't be sorry. This is what we're here for.
Yeah. So I was here. I did hear you mention briefly imposter syndrome. So I guess you did kind of say that you've experienced it before, but would you have any specific advice for people who are feeling that way in any context, maybe at school or at work or anywhere?
Yes. Imposter syndrome is a tricky one to deal with, because a lot of it is in your head, and it's also not it doesn't follow logic. One of the main things that makes imposter syndrome different is that it occurs regardless of past achievements. So you can be amazing at something. Everybody can tell you you're amazing at it. You could have gotten the job because you're amazing at it, and you'll still have it. So that's something that makes it a little bit trickier, is that it happens regardless of those things. Now, tips for overcoming imposter syndrome. The first one that I would say would be, make sure, I said it earlier, but make sure you're cataloging your milestones. If you're not if you're not cataloging what is happening and the things you're learning, you forget that there's a learning curve, because there's always a learning curve with things. So when you get into a place and you don't understand what they're saying, that's essentially when you feel like an imposter. And even if you understand what they're saying, you'll feel like an imposter. So you need to be aware that this particular psychological phenomenon happens regardless of whether you do good things or not. So actually remind yourself of the things that you have done. Like, if you don't, you're just going to keep thinking that you need to learn more and more and more. And it's literally called the curse of knowledge. The curse of knowledge is when you know so many things, you essentially feel like everybody knows it and that it's not a big deal. And that also makes imposter syndrome worse. So I know it sounds strange, but you have to remind yourself that you're there for a reason. You're there for a reason. And it's not just because you got the good grades, because apparently that doesn't matter. You're there because either you're passionate about it or it's important to you. And that would be the biggest thing that I will say, is the biggest tip that I would say for imposter syndrome. Ask yourself, why are you there? Are you in engineering because you're trying to prove something to a bunch of people? Are you in engineering because you want to be a creative person? Are you in engineering? Because if you don't do that, it'll be very, very hard to overcome imposter syndrome. If you're sitting in a room where nobody looks like you and you have nothing to say, it's very easy to succumb to the idea that I guess I don't belong here. But if you sit down and say to yourself, I became an engineer to make this process more efficient, and by God, I will use my creativity to do it no matter what. Even with Lego robotics, if your mission is to make your team better, or your mission is to make the best robot ever, no matter what you're feeling, no matter what mental thing you're going through, you'll fight past it. And that's the biggest tip I would say for imposter syndrome. No matter where you are, even if you're getting the feeling, ask yourself, why are you there? I'm in engineering because I love the numbers. I love the way they think. I love the creativity. So when I would enter a room and I would see nobody would look like me, I'd say to myself, well, I'm here because I have my own perspective and it's different from yours. And that's my second tip. So tip number one, I can't remember what I just said, but tip number two is that when you're in that room, remember that you have value just because of your different perspective, right? It's not just because you've done all this education. Essentially, almost flip it on them. You're in a room full of, let's say, I don't want to use any particular, let's say you're in a room of 15 orange people who only think an orange way, and you're a blue person and you think a blue way. In your head, you're thinking, I don't belong here. All these orange people have their own orange ideas. Until you need somebody with a blue idea. You don't even know when you might need someone with a blue idea. So if you're ever feeling it, remind yourself, you bring indescribable value just because you're the only one like that. Even being just a girl in a room full of guys, we don't all think the same. We don't have the same experiences. So instead of thinking to yourself, I don't belong here, think to yourself, what can I bring here that these people have never heard of? Then all of a sudden, they're not sure if they belong. Boom, you flipped it. But we want everyone to belong. But I just mean, you can always bring something to the table that no one has ever heard of. And don't be scared to say it. Even if it doesn't sound right, even if it's a crazy idea, it might be a crazy idea that might just work. So make sure you say it.
Yeah. And the other piece of advice I have is for the people who do feel like they belong in a situation, understand that that's a pretty big privilege to feel that way. And then seek out, look for others who might feel like they don't belong, and encourage them and remind them that they belong. The littlest gesture of uplifting, of saying like, hey, you did a great job here today. This is awesome. Like, helps, and it makes a difference. And so that's all really cool. So we've had like this great discussion. We've gone like all over the place, but Jennifer, you're here for many reasons, but one of them is you are a published author. I want to talk about some of these books. So can you tell us about your books?
Sure. So I have two here with me. I have She Did What? This one is kind of special because it's like the first book I ever got printed that got delivered to me. So it's like, you can tell I've been through it a couple times. And this is my second book, The Red Elephant. I'll tell you a little bit about both of them. So this is a series called She Did What? And it's a work in progress, actually a really good, interesting lesson in failure. Because one thing you'll learn is if you're making a book with pictures in it, you definitely should edit the entire book before you make the pictures. And I'm talking about the concept as well, because you will find that halfway through or at the end of the book is not when you want to start changing the pictures. So this series is called She Did What? So it's just all about little
She
girls.
did what?
Yeah, exactly like that. That's how you have to say it. She did
I'm learning. She did what? Julia's Asteroid. She did what? Julia's Asteroid, right?
This is Julia's Asteroid. This is the first book I ever published, and it's about this little girl. A meteorite falls outside her house, and she takes a sample, and she has a whole like suit on and everything, and she's just trying to figure out what it is. So she does a bunch of tests on it. So this one is a chemistry lesson. It's about the properties of matter, essentially, the physical properties, the periodic table, and it's a rhyming book, and it's also a coloring book. So this series itself is a coloring book. You can see her. That's her little beaker there. And she's trying to figure out if her sample is magnetic. So she does all these little tests on it. And so the She Did What series, my next book is Roxy's Rocket. So all of them follow a little girl, either Roxy, Julia, or Lily. Those are the three characters. And they're all of different cultures, different races working together. And each of them are learning something new. So the next one, Roxy's Rocket, is about space. And she's just talking to her dog about the moon phases and shooting stars. So it's really about young girls who love to read. That's just it's a consensus. They love to read books. So I decided, why not make books? And it's not only for girls. I just wanted a series where girls were the main characters, where they could see themselves and visualize themselves. Now this one, The Red Elephant, is an environmental series that I started. And the next one after this is called Sheila the Shark. But this one is Red Elephant. And it's about this elephant named Maul. And she's drinking some water in the river and she gets stuck in something. And it's actually a recycling lesson. So it's about, she gets stuck. You can see over there, you can tell what she's picking up over there. So it's just a can of something. And you can tell as the book goes on, all of a sudden she's red. But she gets stuck in all this, well, it's paint. You guys are smart. So she gets stuck in some red paint. And then her friends don't talk to her because they don't recognize her. Everybody's just like, who is that? It's a cheetah. And they're just all like, we don't know who that is. So essentially, and at the end, the rain washes all the paint off and everybody recognizes her again. But the whole lesson is, where does our waste go? And what happens in the event that our waste ends up in an environment that it's not supposed to be in? Who does it affect and to what level does it affect them? So I'm trying to really bring down the idea of how important recycling is to kids. Now I know it seems a bit of it's like, whoa, this whole elephant, his friends don't talk to him. But the lesson behind it is just from a little can of paint or just not recycling something very tiny, you can affect an entire ecosystem or even friendship of animals. So that's about those books. So yeah, I'm really just trying to encourage kids in learning about science and engineering and the process of understanding problems.
That's fascinating. First off, I love elephants. They're like my favorite animal. Bunnies, elephants. It's hard to say, but I love them both. So that's really cool. But we're gonna pause right here for just 1 second. So if you're interested in Jennifer's books and maybe you want to win one, we're doing something today right here on the show. We're going to be giving away 2 copies of her first book, the first book she mentioned today. And here's how you win. The first one's going to go to the first person to write the title of her book in the Twitch chat. And the second book's going to go to the first person to write the subtitle of the book in our Twitch chat. So go ahead. Our moderators are watching. And if you do win, our Twitch chat, they'll let you know what's going on. Send an email to communications@firstroboticscanada.org, and then we'll get your address and we'll send you a copy of the book that you should know the title of. And right away, I see that Swaggy P is the first one to respond. I think I might have to say the First Canada staff members are not eligible to win the prize. Sorry, Swaggy P. Sorry, Dave, but we'll see what it's going. But the books sound great, and you said you're going to continue writing, correct?
Yes, I'm working. I'm really excited right now on a novel that I've just finished. I'm in my editing process, and that one's really exciting for me because it's a novel for kids, probably grades 6 to 8, and it's just about these little kids in a boarding school. It has a very Harry Potter feel, but it's mostly about science. So it's about these kids that are somehow stuck in this boarding school and they have to get out, and they're using all these science things to try and get out. They use like traveling pigeons, but they don't know how they work, so they have to read up on them. So it's just really cool.
I love the sound of it. We got a question from chat, and it's a really good question.
Sure.
Where do people buy your books, Jennifer?
On Amazon. If you go on my website, thestemgirl.com, I have a bookstore section. If you go on the bookstore, the only one that you can get right now is Julia's Asteroid, but the Red Elephant is going to be available by the end of the week because my editor was looking at it. And by the end of the week, the Red Elephant will be available. If you go on my website, again, thestemgirl.com, and go to the bookstore, Julia's Asteroid is right up there, and the Red Elephant will be up by the end of the week.
All right, so STEMGirl.com. Check it out. There's all sorts of good stuff on the website.
Oh yeah, I have a podcast. That one is also really fun. It's called Engineer Your Life, and it's just about, it's like nothing too serious. It's just about giving people standard operating series for anything in life. So if you want to be a good musician, I'm going to have musicians coming on talking about what's a list of things you can do to be a good musician. So this month we're talking about Black History Month. It's Black History Month. We're going to be talking about Black mental health and what different people and races can do to make sure that their mental health is healthy when they're going through tough situations.
Well, that podcast sounds great. I think you should check it out. You know, Jennifer, since you come on our show, if you ever want someone from First Canada or, you know, one of our youth council members to come on your show to chat, we can make that happen. You know,
I'd love to have you guys on. I see something. Oh, I see a collaboration, Michelle.
Exactly. Yeah, let's make this happen. You know, like, come on. It's just, there's so many good vibes here, and like I think, you know, and like you said, you had your experience mentoring First Lego League, and you learned a lot from that. But I think that so many of the lessons that you've learned like are so ingrained in what we do in First. I just think it's just such a natural. And actually, we have a bunch of copies of your book now that we're going to be using as prizes to get more attention to
and
this.
That's super exciting. I won't lie. And I'm not sure yet, but I've been working on a book about Lego robotics. I haven't shown anyone yet, but it's actually super exciting. And I'll tell you guys about it later.
Well, I can't wait. And we definitely want to be involved in this in some way and to hear anything more about that. You know, we are coming up towards the end of the show. And Jennifer, I just wonder if you have any like final words for our audience. You've dropped so much wisdom already. But you have like any other gems?
The only thing that I would say is, I want to put it in a quote. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all. No matter what's happening, go for it. If it's not working out, keep going for it. And I know people say it a lot and it's reiterated a lot, but it's because in that moment, when everything is not working out, the temptation to give up and let go is so, so strong. But even if you just hear me repeating it in your head, anyone, don't stop. Just keep going, no matter what.
I love that. I love it. I'm going to give you one last chance to plug something, Jennifer. Earlier before the show, you told us you're doing a reading of your book.
Yes, I'm doing a reading of my book on February 27th. It's called Read, Repeat, Recycle. I'm going to be putting the event on my website by this weekend, and you can go in there and register. I'll put it up on my social media. So go to thestemgirl.com or follow me on Instagram at thestemgirl, and I will have it up there. So February 27th, please join me. If you have any friends with kids, or if you have any little kids, 4 to 9, 4 to 10, it doesn't even matter. Just bring them along. We do a recycling lesson. We eat some food. We separate recycling. It's just a bunch of fun, and it's a way to just talk about waste. So please do join me on February 27th.
That's awesome. You know, Paul Keenan's Swaggy P from the First Canada staff seems really interested to get his granddaughters involved so he can bring the little swaglings onto the show. It'll be a great time. Jennifer, thank you so much for being here today. This was so much fun. We need to do more stuff together. We want to hear more about this Lego book. We want to keep you involved in First. And, you know, once we have big in-person events again, who knows, we can have like a reading of your book or something in person.
Yes, I'm there already, Karthik.
we have ideas. Let's just get this pandemic over. We do in-person events. You can leave Alberta. We can leave Ontario. All sorts of good stuff will be happening. Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. And everyone, stay tuned. We're going to be back with the folks from NASA and Team 118 talking about the EveryBot after this video from our sponsors. See you, everyone. Oh, hey, we're back. Michelle, how's it going?
It's going so good. I really love that book. And I know I really liked chemistry when I was like in grade 3. So that first book she mentioned, I would have loved that book. I would have read it so much.
I want to find out what she found out about the asteroid. I'd be nervous to touch the asteroid, Like, I was watching a documentary about Chernobyl, and the guy touched the graphite, and then he died. It was bad, It's scary stuff. I know. I'm just like going off topic. Mr. Handsome, how are you enjoying the show over there? Oh,
I'm
yeah,
liking
good.
it too.
Yeah, big fan. All right. Let's welcome the folks from Team 118, makers, developers of the Everybot. Starting off with Vin Pham, first along with Team 4587, Jersey Voltage from Jersey Village, Texas, not New Jersey. Current mentor of Team 118, the Robonauts, who are from League City, Texas, and is studying electrical engineering at Prairie View A&M University and working as a robotics electrical designer for lunar exploration rovers at NASA's Johnson Space Center. Hey, Vim, how's it going, man?
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Next up, we have Ryan Stockton, first alum and current mentor of Team 118, currently studying mechanical engineering at Texas A&M University and working as a robotics mechanical designer for lunar exploration rovers, just like Vin is at NASA's Johnson Space Center. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, Ryan, were you on Team 118 when y'all came up here for the Greater Toronto Regional East in 2016?
I was on the team. I was not in Toronto. That was my rookie year.
Oh, you missed out. Okay, all right. I was just trying to see if we could have like some reunion vibes going on here. We'll check out with Romeo when we get to him. Jenna K. Furch, first alum from Team 3184, Blaze Robotics from Burnsville, Minnesota. She is currently plugged in from Colorado. Current mentor on Team 118, alumni of the University of Minnesota Twin Cities, and a planning and integration specialist for the Office of Planning, Integration, and Environmental at NASA's Johnson Space Center. Hello, Jenna Kay.
Hello, Karthik and Michelle. How are you guys today?
We are doing great. Did you enjoy that last segment we just had with Jennifer Ladipo?
I thought she was the coolest person in the entire world. And it's so funny because we were actually messaging each other on the side, the Everybot crew, and we were like, I don't know how we're going to follow this. She is seriously so cool. And we were texting and we were like, it really resonates, the thing about failing, because I know NASA, it's kind of controversial to be like, our saying is failure is never an option. But as interns and now new employees, like we've all failed classes. We've, had our fair share of failures. So that really resonated. And we totally agree with that. Fail fast, fail hard, fail often. So we loved that. We loved her.
And it's about having those failures early so you don't have them in those like critical state. Like obviously we can't have space shuttles or stuff
so
like
you
that.
don't have them at NASA. You can have them while you build robots. So
or even in NASA in like development environments and whatever. And like that's why you set these things up. That's a whole other discussion. We have a lot to talk about Everybot. Also, we have to introduce one of your teammates. He's just like kind of sitting out there.
Sorry.
We got Romeo Patil, first alum and current mentor of Team 118, currently studying mechanical engineering and anthropology at the University of Texas, working as a mechanical design engineer co-op for deep space exploration spacesuits at NASA's Johnson Space Center. What up, buddy? How are you doing?
Thanks, Karthik. Super excited to be here. I think all of us are super passionate about Everybot, and we can't wait to talk about it.
I love Everybot. I can't wait to hear all about it. Now, were you on 118 when the team came up to
Karthik?
Canada?
I actually was. That was a super awesome event. I think
that was a lot of fun.
For sure. That was my senior year, and dude, just seeing what Canada is all about. That was my first time visiting, my first time there, and for that to be at a competition was just unreal. Just interacting with some of y'all was a lot of fun, and haven't forget any of the moments I didn't forget, like you emceeing and smashing into the walls. I was behind the glass. It was a great time.
I think whenever you can have an event where you have 118 and 2056 up against 1114 and 1241 in the finals, it's just this like epic like pick for Einstein clash, in week 2 of the season. It was a lot of fun. That was great. Now the Texas in districts, hopefully there's a better world wherever you could possibly come back to Canada again.
I know we certainly always talk about coming up to Canada because that's where everyone wants to be nowadays.
Right. Jenna, you've never been to Canada, correct?
I think I crossed over to Canada once when I was for Detroit Champs, and then we just like crossed over once and came
by
back.
Accident or on purpose?
Probably by accident, knowing my team. But so I don't know if that counts, but
it sort of counts.
I'd love to go.
We could probably chat robot memories with all of you and all sorts of fun stories and do like a whole show on that. But we're here to talk about the EveryBot. So I hear you have a little presentation made for us. So maybe let's take a look at those slides and you can walk us through and tell our audience everything there is about the EveryBot.
Yeah, we would love to. So welcome to our presentation. Like we said, we are super excited to be talking to you guys. We were supposed to have our friend Ethan Reed here, so special shout out to him. Unfortunately, like Karthik said, it is extra snowy, pretty much everywhere right now. Not really everywhere, but kind of everywhere, especially in Houston. He does not have power, so he could not join us, but just wanted to say a little shout out for him.
Shout out to Ethan, who's probably not watching right now because he has no power.
He'll watch this later, but he really wanted to be here because he has a lot to say about this program. So if you just want to jump right in, I'm going to tell you guys about what the EveryBot is, if you want to go to the next slide. So the EveryBot is a yearly robot build and set of resources that allows people to build an affordable robot using the kit of parts and also parts from local hardware stores and online retailers like AndyMark and Vex Pro and also McMaster. And all fabrication and assembly can be done with common and inexpensive tools. And so our goal as the EveryBot crew is that our mission statement, our initiative aims to improve the FRC student experience by enabling any team and student to field an inexpensive robot capable of competing in local finals and championship level tournament matches. So we are really passionate about the fact that we want students to get the most out of a program, and we think they can get the most out of the program when they set a goal and achieve that. And so the level of competitiveness that we outline in our mission statement that I just stated is attainable by any team. And so like we want kids to show up to champs and think that they can actually win it and have a great time and be inspired because ultimately our goal and our passion is not about it is about getting them into engineering, but also getting them interested in things like strategy and problem solving and being creative. And we want them to think that they can win and just not just get creamed or crushed by 3-digit teams. So or carried. So yeah, it's all about leveling the playing field too.
That I just want to say that really interests me because I think a lot of the time, and spoiler alert, I gave a TED talk on this topic, but the importance of competition. And at first, like we have this competition, but sometimes, it's often like, oh, the team should just be happy to be here. Team should just be happy to move and whatever. But I love that you all are understanding that, people want to do more. And, you come to this competition and you watch a competition at the end of the day, you see teams walk away with banners and medals. And they're like, I want to be like that. How can I do that? But understanding that every team is at widely different resource levels. And that's okay because there's lots of cool stuff you can do across the spectrum. But you're all are showing that with the EveryBot or just with some simple ingenuity, not too much money, you can build a robot that can compete with these complicated CNC machine robots with students, with 4 years of experience, mentors with 20 years of experience. And you're going to show us that this can happen, but there's a recipe to follow.
Totally. And that's the whole goal. I'm glad you brought that up, is like, not only do we provide the schematics to build a robot, but also we provide strategy for teams who may just want to, look at the strategy because maybe they struggle with that. So, I mean, when I was a student, I really wanted to win, and I think other students want to win. And that's, I'm not saying you have to win to be inspired, but it does help. So,
well, and I think where you win is by trying to win, because in trying to win, you learn all those skills that you're going to need to try and compete for scholarships and try and compete for spots in universities and colleges and try and compete for business contracts when you're in the professional world and try and compete for jobs at NASA or other cool places and stuff like that. But going through that journey where you have to have a goal that's out there, and you have to push for it and you have to work as a team for it and you have to be resourceful, and all those things come together. And that's why FIRST is so beautiful, and the EveryBot is kind of enhancing that.
Yes, totally. I think just giving people a starting point to like give them that place to have that journey is super important to us, because like you said, it's all about the journey. So yeah, but there are many circumstances that can lead a team to want to make use of a pre-designed robot. And we aim to produce as many useful resources as we can. So, an example of some teams that may want to use it would be, school teams that maybe have limited build time, or communities with limited funding. I think we mentioned effective strategies, so teams that maybe struggle to develop those strategies, or even like any team with any sort of special needs, which can benefit from that published solution. So like I said, it just gives them a starting place. So that ultimately, that's the goal and the purpose of every bot from its core and from our mission statement. So I'm going to pass it off to Ramil to talk more about the who, if you want to go to the next slide.
Thanks, Jenna. I think Jenna just hit on like a bunch of really important stuff, and it kind of helps us guide why we do EveryBot. I think this next thing is really big. Who can use EveryBot? And this might sound a little cheesy, but really everyone can use it. And it's kind of why it's called EveryBot. And first can be super overwhelming to any team. Even for our team 118, first is hard. We don't have an easy time. Sure, we have a lot of experience, but it's hard. So there's all these barriers to entry, whether it be cost, mentorship, or resources. So anything that we can do to kind of eliminate some of those barriers and help just make this program better to us is a good thing to do. So that's kind of why we're called EveryBot. But here's some examples of how everyone can use it. So Jenna kind of mentioned maybe some teams with certain needs, or lower resources, but also teams with a lot of resources as well could use EveryBot as a strategic tool. You can understand, hey, this is a robot that can perform at a competition. For example, 118 uses it for driver practice all the time. There's other teams in the Houston area who have kind of picked up on that, and they build EveryBots, like our friends 3487 Spectrum and 231. They build EveryBot just to do driver practice. Sometimes they're competing against their own practice robot, and there's a lot of little intricacies in understanding some of that strategy earlier in the season that can help you out. So I think really everyone can use EveryBot. Obviously, we have some target audiences, but really it's kind of a universal program, and the strategic design aspects that Jenna and Karthik were talking about earlier are something we really try to push. It's not just this list of design guide and tutorials. It's also a why. Why do we do all these things? And we really feel like everyone can learn something from that why.
Yeah, so you're saying basically that a team might not be building the EveryBot, but they can go through and take a look at this documentation when it's released and kind of refine their strategic choices based on your strategic choices.
Exactly. When we say that with, $1,000, we can build a certain robot, that kind of helps teams understand, hey, this is what is possible. And like, let me look at my resources and what I can do. It might be, we might have $5,000, or we might have, some more mentorship support or some more sponsors. Here's what we can do. And we can kind of set this baseline for ourselves and, achievable goal. And then we can also get an idea of what other teams might be doing in a competition. So like, I just think all those things are really cool. And, I kind of hit on how 118 uses EveryBot, and oftentimes, we keep talking about all these strategies, and there's like, for example, in 2018, there was this strategy that kind of got coined as the EveryBot strategy. So that year was Power Up, and early in the season, we released the EveryBot video, and a lot of people were like, dang, the EveryBot can dump a bunch of cubes into the switch really fast. And if you go watch the matches on Einstein, the EveryBot strategy was fully in play. And it's really, people were aware of that from, week one, which was really cool to kind of show the world of, hey, this is what we can do with these hand tools and with your local hardware store.
Awesome.
All right, so we can move on to the next slide. We got Ryan coming up.
Yeah, so I'm just going to talk about kind of our philosophy and our internal rules of thumb on how we go about building a robot that that can be successful. So Saturday night after kickoff, we do our robot can and our robot will. The Robonauts do this as well. We've been doing it forever. So we list out in the robot can everything a robot can do in the game. No matter how simple that is, whether it's drive, be agile, be lightweight, have a low CG, robot technical parameters like that, to can score high, can score in the inner port, the outer port, the low goal. And we pick, with the robot will, we pick what our robot will do. And that's really where the strategic design happens, is right there. Before we even think about what we're actually going to build, it's what are we going to do. And in 2020, for example, it was tough to decide not to shoot. We knew that we could technically pull off a outer goal shooter last year, but our $1,000 budget just would not allow for a robot to do that. And so we were like, what can we do with our constraints that can be a really effective robot? And that was a low goal robot with a climber. The climber was kind of a big part of that, and the most difficult part of every bot we built so far was that climber. So yeah, anyway, after the robot will, we sit around and we try to think of concepts, robot concepts. This year it was a little clearer once we decided not to shoot. Last year in 2 years ago now, in 2019, for example, we debated between the conveyor belt we did versus like a roller claw on an arm, and that arm would have allowed us to score in the low goal of the rocket. But we were able to build a much simpler robot, drop an actuator out of the robot by doing the conveyor belt solution, and build a really robust robot like that. When you start building arms and stuff, the robot loses a little bit of robustness. We think we did a better job this year than we did in 2018 at building an arm. But that goes into my next point, is we try to limit the robot to 3 actuations plus the drivetrain. In 2018, that was the 2 intake rollers plus the arm. In 2019, we just had the hatch arm and the conveyor belt. And then this year and 2020, we had the arm, the roller, and the climber. So we're pretty confident now, and we've also do a little bit of internal looking back on previous years. We didn't build an everybot, or we didn't build it with our current format, and could we have done it with 3 actuators? And we think we can. So we were pretty confident in that. Another thing, we always use the kit of parts drivetrain. We always will. It's a superb solution to robot drivetrains. I wish we used it on 118. We could save a lot of time and resources by using the kit of parts drivetrain.
There's a lot of teams that could use the kit of parts drivetrain. I have a lot of roots in this with the Kitbot on steroids, so I have thoughts. But yes.
Yeah. And Kitbot on steroids is one of our inspirations for how we go about doing our program today. Another thing is we don't use pneumatics. We know there are a lot of pneumatic components in the rookie kit of parts, but it adds a level of complexity with having to worry about pneumatic leaks. And there's all these components, and there's just a huge chunk of the rules is just surrounding pneumatic components. And we don't want that to be a barrier of entry to building this robot. So we don't use pneumatics. And our next principle is we buy as much as we can. So we've internally done some design work on like designing a gearbox that can be made with a step drill bit and just some scribing some lines on some metal. But we always go back to the cost is pretty close to just buying a Versaplanetary or a Rev Ultraplanetary or an AndyMark 57 Sport. And the reliability is way higher with buying an off-the-shelf solution. So we want to focus on reliability and robustness. And so we try to buy what we can. And the way we design the robot structure overall is we love the box tube that comes in the kit of parts. Usually it's been 1x2 box tube the last couple of years. It was 1x1 box tube before, but we love building structure out of those box tubes and these $1 steel super thin tie plates we get from Home Depot. We cut them into whatever shape we want, and that just like forms the skeleton of the robot. And building a robust structure with that is super easy to do with just drilling a bunch of holes in some box tube, popping some rivets or bolts in. And like Jenna mentioned earlier, just hand tools, hand drills, stuff like that. Hand riveters you can buy for $10 at Harbor Freight, stuff like that is what we restrict ourselves. Obviously, we're building in a facility with a lot of resources, and we really limit ourselves to not using anything more than that, even though we have access to it. We want to make sure it really can be done how we say it can be done.
That is kind of cool that you are building a robot that could be built in any classroom, you know, across the world, in like the hub of NASA and like the Johnson Space Center, where like shuttles and stuff and rovers and stuff happen. So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's a very inspiring workplace for sure. And another thing that we've sort of perfected is the CAD. A lot of teams design in CAD before they build their robot, and a lot of teams do the CAD afterwards. We have a bit of a hybrid with that. We'll use the CAD to determine geometries we need, but building a robot in a week, we usually have to build concurrently with doing the CAD, and a lot of times the CAD will just be done afterwards. And we do like that CAD resource because it gives a really good 3D resource. We put it on GrabCAD. You don't even need CAD software to view it. You can just view it in their browser. And it gives a really good representation to teams of what was actually built. Pictures are one thing, but being able to spin that 3D model around, we think is really helpful to teams. And so the last point I want to talk about is the climber this year, or in 2020. We're pretty proud of that, because building a climber, we never thought we'd be able to do it with the EveryBot limitations. Climbers usually have precision machined elevator bearing blocks, stuff like that, or complex linkages. And we were pretty proud of how we were able to pull it off with just a PVC pipe and a box tube and a ratchet strap. And we actually saw a lot of EveryBot climbers on these robots that were high goal shooters, turrets. Then they wanted a simple solution for a climber, even though they had manufacturing resources. But they looked to EveryBot climbers. So we were pretty proud of that, being able to pull that off. And that's just kind of an overview of what we internally focus on when we go to design an EveryBot. And up next will be Vin, who'll be talking about some interesting stats regarding the history of the EveryBot program.
Cool, thanks, Ryan. If we go to the next slide. So we try to compile as much data as we can from the results of EveryBot. So in addition to the stats shown on the screen, here are some other interesting ones. Of the rookie teams that competed with EveryBots, 77 won at least one award, which averages to 1.27 awards. In addition, these graphs do not show the full potential growth of EveryBot because the season got cut short in 2020. But lastly, the number of EveryBots actually doubled from 2018 and 2019. So like we're pretty proud about that growth.
So 147 EveryBots built in 2020, and that's not with a full season. And even if we assume that's a full season, 3.6% of the teams in first built robot that you all put together. It's kind of cool, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a big thing.
And now looking at that small number, but this large number of awards, and these aren't, you know, like event finalist, event winner, rookie all-star, judge, quality award, industrial design award, like the big awards that, you know, teams are really intensely competing for. So for years, and I'm going to go to soapbox here, for years, I've been trying to get teams to build simpler robots. I always say you don't need to build something overly complex. If you tend to build something with so many features, you talk about the 3 actuation rule, which is something I'm going to start to internalize and absorb. But these teams with multiple degrees of freedom and being able to score forwards and backwards on all levels of the rocket and the cargo ship and all of that. And I see a lot of them struggle, and a lot of them, you know, don't make the elimination round. And I always say, like, build something simple and reliable and you get this great experience. And that's what the EveryBot is. And that's what's happened here. And this is like the proof that a really simple robot, because when it's done early, you have more time to program. You have more time to work on autonomous modes. You have more time for driver practice. You have less time failing because there's only 3 actuations. So there's only 3 things that can fail. And there's just all this going on. And this is just this great introductory experience for teams who want an introductory experience. Or it's a great, like, hey, this is a way our team can focus on the parts of the competition that we really value and still be successful. So these graphs make me happy.
No, it's a great insight. Like, I'm always a firm believer that building a simple mechanism is usually be more difficult to complete a complex task. But that's almost always the way to go. We always try to keep it simple. But yeah. So going on to the success stories, the next slide. So like just to share some of the success stories that we found, starting with 2609 Beaverworks.
Ontario team from Guelph, Ontario.
They performed at like an Einstein level with multiple ontons that worked incredibly well with their high goal partners. They climbed nearly every match and handled the most power cells of any team at their first event. They also ranked first in the Ontario district when the season was canceled, unfortunately. After that is 5160 Chargers. They won every event at the regional they went to and seeded first, winning the tournament in only 6 matches. After that, we have 7614 Phoenix Robotics. This team even built an EveryBot in both 2019 and 2020. While these are only a few of the honorable mentions, there are a ton of other really successful Ontario teams. That's it for my portion.
So I think that's the end of the presentation.
Well, first of all, thank you for the presentation. It's great. It was really great to see this happening in Ontario. And so we have, we're running up on time here, but a couple questions. One quick one is, what inspired all this? How did you come up with this idea? Because this is obviously a lot of work, and FRC teams, you know, a team like 118 who has Einstein aspirations every year could be focused on a lot of different things. Why the EveryBot?
So I'll take this question. So back in 2014, Alan Gregory was talking with some 118 mentors, and he suggested that we build a robot with $1,000 and the kit of parts. And it's because the team was really looking for more to do. I mean, we build 2 robots a year, practice robot, a competition robot, but we carry 60 students on the team, and we were looking for more, how to get more students engaged in our team. And so from 2014 through 2017, we ran the program with mentors and current students building a robot over the 6-week build season with the same EveryBot goal, but it wasn't as impactful because it drug out over the 6-week build season. We did blog updates every meeting, but it wasn't really as helpful to the community as we had hoped it could be. So in 2018, we kind of revamped how we did it. And we switched it. We're just alumni do it. Students can help if they want to, but they usually want to build the 118 robot. So we have Robonauts alumni along with Spectrum 231 alumni as well. And we switch it to the 1 week, build a robot in 1 week, because 3 days, like robot in 3 days, that was a big inspiration for us as well, but we didn't feel we could build a quality product in 3 days. And another reason it is 1 week is we're alumni, we're in college. A lot of us have to go back to school after that first week. So that limitation kind of drove us to how we do the program today. And we wanted it to be actually useful, more useful than the previous iteration of how we did EveryBot. And that's what led us to making a guide on how we built it, bill of materials, CAD, as many resources as possible. We've been adding resources. This past year, we added scouting resources and scouting sheets and stuff like that. But yeah, Alan Gregory we owe a lot to him. Woody Flowers winner from 2019, fantastic mentor.
I think
so
we
was
all
a
in
big
the community
inspiration.
have a lot to owe to
Yes,
Alex.
we
The amount of
very
resources
much
that
do.
Spectrum drops all the time. They raise the bar there hugely. Running out of time, I want to know what's new for 2021, because I saw some pretty cool videos on YouTube. I'd love to hear about them.
Yeah, I can go into that as well. We took the 2020 EveryBot, and we didn't have the environment to be able to build a new robot this year as much as we wanted to.
We're in the middle of a
with
pandemic.
access to our facility. Yeah, exactly. So we took the 2020 EveryBot, we took the climber off, don't need a climber for the at-home challenges, and we filmed a bunch of videos of doing those challenges. We did not do them autonomously. We were just doing basic driving with the controller, and just to kind of give a baseline to the community for times that could be expected from just a robot that is a kit parts, chassis, standard gearing, nothing special. And we posted those on YouTube, and we have all the challenges out there. We also kind of posted a video of a broken strategy that luckily they fixed. And that's what we've done this year.
That's great. And all of these can be found linked to your website, which is?
That website is 118everybot.org.
118everybot.org. So make sure you check that out. We could have talked for longer. We could do a lot of this, but here, I want to ask you a question because I like to get things in the schedule early. Next year, you want to come on the show right after the EveryBot's released? First episode that we do after EveryBot's released?
Yes. Online
Awesome.
for tours.
Absolutely.
Yes.
There we go. We'd love to have you back here. Teams in Ontario have been loving the EveryBot, and we can talk further. I know you've been working with one of our senior mentors, Paul Keenan, about like making things adaptable to like Canadian supply lists, so they can get them in the Canadian Home Depot. Or a lot of Canadians like Canadian Tire. That's like our store, so whatever like that. But thanks so much for coming on the show. But like more than that, thank you so much for this resource, not just to all of you, but everyone at 118, Lucian Junkin, who all the forerunners of this amazing program. You're changing FRC. And I really believe that. And you're making this program better for everyone. You're raising the floor. And if you think of one of the first strategic principles of equity, diversity, and inclusion, the EveryBot is all about that. So thank you for doing all of that. And I can't wait to see all of you soon. And maybe like in person at a Houston championship at some point, we'll all have been stabbed in the arm and we can do the thing. It'll be great. But thank you for this.
Yes, thank you so much for having us.
All right. Michelle, that wraps up another show of First Canada Live. Have a good time.
Oh yeah, that was great.
This one I
love hearing about the EveryBot and everything you said. That was so true. I love the idea. It's what a great idea. What a great initiative.
It is very, very cool. So next week, Michelle, we've got a lot of good stuff coming up. We're going to be doing a wrap up of the first FLL Challenge qualifier of the season, the Kingston qualifying event. We'll be looking at some match video, some presentation video, and re-announcing all the award winners. So that's going to be a lot of fun. The Kahoot Challenge is back with multi-time champion Brennan Vivek going up against Tegan Poles. Now Tegan has actually beaten Brennan. She was in the audience and beat Brennan. I think she's like the only person to beat Brennan. So like this is like a real clash of the Titans. And we'll be doing an FRC team showcase on teams 1374 and teams 7712. 7712 is actually a team who built the EveryBot last year. So maybe they'll be talking about that. A reminder to everyone, stay safe out there. There's a lot going on. Be careful with the snow. Be careful with COVID. Take care of yourselves. Fold up your paper cranes, get to 1,000, you get a free wish. And thank you to all our producers, moderator, and chat. And we will see you all soon. Night, everyone.